Hello, Maverick fans. Welcome to another edition of the Mavpuckcast with Jason.
And John.
As always, thanks for tuning in and taking a listen.
Yep. This is our second podcast of the new year.
Number two.
Yep.
Technically.
Yeah. Pretty exciting to be back in the swing of NCHC play.
Yeah, like you were just saying, it's nice to this is kind of the start of the routine for us. From here on out, we're pretty much every week.
So. Yeah, you and I were kind of in a rhythm there for a while, and then December came, and after that St. Cloud series, it was kind of like, oh, I'll see you in a couple weeks for a holiday episode, and it...
So the Mavpuckcast suggestion is that we do away with winter breaks.
Yeah, we need to play like a
Saturday, Monday series.
Yeah, we need to play like a 44 game schedule instead of a 34 game schedule, and no more Monday at noon games.
We'll give them 1 week off. They'll let them pick one weekend. They can have one weekend in the season off, and we'll just go straight.
We're not animals here. We'll give them a week off.
We can give them a week
but we
off.
Want to see hockey. It makes it easier when we're doing this podcast to stay in a rhythm.
Yeah,
that's right.
And that's what really matters in this world. So
it's all about the podcast now. It's all about the content on the podcast.
I don't care about a song about the Benjamins. It's all about the podcast.
It's all about the podcast. So
our usual intro to the podcast. What are we drinking?
Everybody's favorite segment.
I think I've made you go first the last few times. So
are you going to go first?
I think I'm going to go first.
Okay.
Does that work?
That's right.
So for those maybe who are new listeners,
I hope we have some new listeners.
That would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Hi.
Otherwise, we're going to be in the constant, decline for the rest of the season. Yeah.
The four of you that listen to our podcast every week.
Yeah.
I'm drinking something again.
Yeah.
You'll know that we try to kind of jinx them a little bit, and
yeah,
I struggled to find something. With North Dakota coming in next, something that was from there. Apparently, they don't export a whole lot. They don't like to share, I guess. I don't know.
I've been to Grand Forks. They drink a lot of beer up there.
It runs out. They don't have enough to ship.
Yeah, they don't have enough to export to Nebraska.
So I was introduced to Kincaider Brewery. They are in Broken Bow. So we're going to try to
Broken Bow, Nebraska. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to try to break North Dakota.
Okay.
With something called Devil's Gap Jalapeno Ale.
It's great that you picked something from Broken Bow because, obviously most of their fans still refer to them as the Fighting Sioux.
Yes, they do.
And they use bow and arrows, so...
When they're really the effing Hawks.
They're the effing Hawks. So
they are the effing Hawks.
Yeah, so good. I like we kind of spun that. We spun that into a series appropriate beers.
Yes,
from Broken Bow.
Hopefully this works for us next.
It's got a like a skull guy wearing a cowboy outfit.
Hat.
Yeah.
Yep.
It looks like a dangerous beer.
And it does have some heat to it.
Does it have a kick?
Yeah, and it's right off the bat. So
okay,
it's jalapeno. So if you don't like jalapeno, I
don't
know why I never picked this up in the first
I'll take
place,
your word for it.
Don't do it.
So what I'm drinking this week?
What do you got?
I am drinking, and this is a return of the drink I drank in the podcast before we swept Arizona State in November.
Ooh,
Hank's Gourmet Root Beer.
Back to what.
So I brought it back. I brought back the drink that we drank before the sweep. So we'll see if we can get it done this week against North Dakota.
I sure hope so.
I do too.
So let's get into a recap of the past weekend. UNO headed out west, went to the Rockies. Hopefully didn't get too much skiing in, spent their time focusing, and played Denver for 2 games on Friday and Saturday.
Which for the last 4 or 5 seasons has been a tough out for UNO out there. It's been a tough series at Denver.
We can't even score goals. Like, it's not like we're losing. We're literally getting shut out. We got shut out, what, 4 of the last 6 or something.
It reminds me of the early years of the UNO program when our travel partner in the CCHA was Alaska Fairbanks, and we would go out there every year, and we could not get a win. Other teams in the conference would go out there and win. And it's not that we weren't a better team than Fairbanks some of those years, but we just couldn't get a win. And so there was one point when we got a win, and that finally got the monkey off our backs, and we started winning out in Fairbanks. So, going into this series, we were hopeful.
Sadly, we weren't successful.
No, but the team played very well this weekend. I think you would agree with that.
Absolutely. I would say that it was probably the best hockey I've seen them play in Denver. I think it's just unfortunate for those maybe that weren't able to watch the game or something, that didn't have the NCHC package or access to CBS Sports for Friday's game. Evan continued his shutout streak for what was almost 8 periods of hockey. They were into the second when Denver scored what would be the only goal of the game and get a win 1-0 on Friday.
Yep.
And then,
he made some fantastic saves on Friday.
Yeah, well, and the defense played well.
They did.
And I think we'll talk a little bit more probably about that. But then Saturday, UNO was actually winning.
Yeah.
For quite a bit of the game, and then a little over a minute left, and Denver got the equalizer with the goalie pulled, and
when that happens,
like 50 seconds into the overtime, I think is when.
And you see that we've seen that, over the years, and that happens during seasons. Those are those killer moments right at the end.
Mm-hmm.
You're holding on, trying to pull out the victory, and the other team gets the equalizer right there, close to the end of regulation. And it's just a momentum killer. And I felt so bad for the guys because they had been working so hard all weekend. They said in the press conference last Tuesday, Morelli and Olofsson both said that one of the team's goals this season was to kind of get that monkey off their back out in Denver and get a victory. And I felt so bad for the guys because they had worked so hard and they played so well that game.
Yeah.
And that's just one of those fluky things that happens. It was a shot from out at the blue line by DU's Mitchell. And it just it got deflected and it went in. It was not a high percentage shot by any means. It was.
No, it's just one of those pinball things.
Yep.
Like you just send it in the mass of people and hope that it comes out the other side.
Right. And unfortunately it did.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Evan's got no chance at something like you're playing percentages.
No.
You know where the shot's coming from, and you're down and trying to hope it hits you.
Exactly. So, yeah.
And then I think, I don't know. My opinion, the overtime goal that gave DU the victory was not really Evan's fault. I mean, you always want him to make a save like that, but when you let a guy come out of the corner and cross the net, like that's on you as a defense. I mean, you needed to step up and separate him from the puck and play a little bit more physical. And it was odd because I thought that in the two games up until that point that UNO was playing a pretty physical brand of hockey that we haven't
really
seen a whole lot this year from them.
They looked tough out there.
And they were smart about it. They were in control. Yep. They didn't get, crazy, 10-minute game misconduct penalties and stuff that we've seen.
No, they played a smart game both nights, and they didn't get those stupid penalties.
Right.
Yeah.
And they didn't make too many mistakes. No. And when they made a mistake, they were good at supporting each other. I thought.
Yep, and they recovered well. Yep. I cringe anytime a game goes to overtime because it's one of those things where, one or the other teams oftentimes will score right at the beginning of that overtime period, or it'll, just like
you can get past like the first minute and a half. Usually you're assured to get
everybody
through
kind of
that
settles into it. Yeah, exactly. But then that's,
It seems like with overtime, you can always tell for me, like at the first face off, because either both teams kind of settle into like, all right, we're just going to, meander and wait for an opportunity.
Kind of play conservative hockey, or one of them.
Or you come out like Denver did, saying we're going to push the pace, and I don't think Omaha was ready for it.
No, and you have to remember at that time, obviously Denver had the momentum, and that had to be just emotionally a killer when we gave up the equalizing goal in the third, and it was so tough because they played so well, and you're just like, ugh.
And I know the risk reward on it is kind of, something that goes through a coach's head. I wish Gabnet would have had the guys come out running a little bit more on that overtime period. I think that I kind of felt like you have Denver's on a high point because they just scored to equalize it. And statistically speaking, a lot of times when you see a goal in overtime, it's typically the team that scored to equalize, right?
They've got the momentum.
So you got to assume that Denver's got that on their back, right? So I would have loved to see, them load up, go high octane, throw something at them that they hadn't seen before. Like,
Right.
I would have, I don't know. And this is just me and my coaching style, probably. But if it were me, I would have thrown out, Olafson's the Mo line, right?
Yep.
Morelli, Olafson, and Ward. And I would have put Whioux on the back end with one defenseman just to mess with DU going, what
are they
the heck
doing?
is the freshman doing on defense?
So David Carl's like, what are they doing out there?
And just go all out. Because at that point in time, like, if they score what? Like, we can't win in Denver.
Yeah.
I mean, you just had you had a fluky goal that got you to overtime.
I know.
If you lose on some weird play, going for it, then so be it. But I thought we played a little bit timid in that overtime.
Well, and it's tough because in another season, the outcome in overtime might have been different. But because things have not gone the team's way this season a lot, I'm sure that was just a rough thing because you're probably thinking, in that third period, we're going to hold on.
Right.
We're going to get the victory. We're finally gonna, and that would have been so
awesome.
Huge, for the next couple series this month doing that. But
yeah, because they had the first goal,
right?
And DU tied it, right? Because we were never up 2, right? It was 1-0, 1-1, right?
I think so, but let me
I'm
check.
pretty sure.
As you and I both are having amnesia right now.
I know, it's so much. See, I got to stop watching other games because then I start I start watching like an East Coast hockey game and I can't remember.
Oh, I know,
which
right?
team in red that I was watching.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And okay, so let me look here. We got the box score coming up.
Yeah,
yep.
Morelli then Finley.
Yep.
And then we get it back, and that's what I like.
We did. Zach Jordan had a nice goal.
That was a nice power play goal.
It was a pretty goal, and nice for him to get that. And you're feeling pretty good. You were worried at first that one goal might be all they'd get, but God, they played great all weekend. So I can't fault them one way or another for the outcome this week. I mean, we would have loved to have broken through at Denver, but the way that they played, I think, was better than a lot of people. It was certainly better than the commentators for both of those games thought we were going to play this weekend.
Right. Yeah, I think that Friday night, Denver seemed to think like, oh, this is UNO, we'll have them.
Right.
And I'm sure Carl kind of got into their heads and stuff for Saturday a little bit because they played a little bit. Denver played a little bit better.
Yeah.
On Saturday than
they sure did
than on Friday.
Yeah,
but,
and I think UNO's a team this season when they've set their mind to proving a point and winning games. I mean, we saw it in that Arizona State series after Thanksgiving when they want to prove a point and they want to win. These guys play really, really well together.
Yeah. So how do we replicate? Like, what's the point every game, right?
I think it's probably hard to keep that, kind of emotional stamina going on a game in, game out basis. But I think they played really well. Now, here's one of the things I was going to ask you about this.
Okay.
Somebody said, or a few people said after the Saturday night game, the heartbreaking loss in overtime, they said, is this, they thought this might be the second worst loss in UNO hockey history. Now, somebody like me who's been around the last 21 years and 3 months of this program, I didn't really look at it as kind of a historic, like a historic moment kind of loss. I think in the context of this season, it was a big loss just considering how things have gone. And in the context of our recent history with DU, it was a tough loss. But I don't think, historically, when you look at a lot of the losses and kind of the ebb and flow of different seasons over the years, that this one was.
Yeah, I don't know that I wouldn't call it a bad loss.
No, it wasn't a bad loss. And it wasn't.
It wasn't a bad loss because they played well and it was an unfortunate bounce.
It wasn't one where I really felt like heartbroken or emotionally ripped up. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
For me, the bad loss is, so a bad loss is the Boston game in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Exactly.
That's the kind of things, when I think of a bad loss, that's the kind of games that come to my mind.
And speaking of that same season, the end of the regular season, they were up for a series at Western Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know if they were going to make the NCAA tournament in that 05-06 season at that point. And all they needed to get home ice in the CCHA playoffs, I believe, was 2 points at Western.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't get it. And I remember as the team skated off the ice, Tomas Klempa, slammed his stick into the glass as they were going off because they were incredibly frustrated. And that to me was one of those losses that was like a tough loss or a bad loss that weekend.
Where it's in your hand and you let it slip away.
Yes.
Yeah. So those are the
You're
types of things I
controlling
think
your
of.
destiny. Yeah.
Yeah. When I think of a bad loss, those are the types of things that I think of. Or, I've seen teams I saw a team that was up by 5 goals, 5-0, going into the third period and let in 6 goals in the third period.
Sure.
I mean, those are the types of things like you had that for 2 periods of hockey. You were up 5-0 and you just turtled.
Right.
Like, that's a bad loss.
Yeah. This one I wouldn't say historically is one we'll probably even remember.
I don't think
a couple
so.
seasons from now. Do you? I think it's just a blip on the radar.
I mean, you might. I don't know. Some people might remember it. I mean, I could see me remembering it just because obviously me growing up watching Denver, these kinds of things might set into me just because I'm used to the teams. But
right,
I don't think it's a program definition. I don't even think it would have been a program defining win had we squeaked it out or anything. Like, this wasn't a.
You don't necessarily know that. I mean,
It was
maybe
just
that
a
would have
game.
turned the tide this season, but probably not.
Probably
I mean,
not.
no.
Right.
It would have been a good, solid kind of moral victory for a team
Right.
that struggled this season and a team that struggled against Denver recently. So I think, like, in kind of like this kind of narrow context, it was. But I just don't think.
Yeah.
Historically, I don't think it'll be.
I think it's just fans, invested and
You're exactly right. Yeah.
You had it and it was there and
you feel
then you
for the
just
guys.
get something just
Yeah.
weird, like it goes off a skate or something, and
I know that it's
off.
been a frustrating season for these guys. So you were thinking about the players and the coaching staff, and you're thinking, I just want them to get this. This would be big for them.
Yeah, I wanted to see their elation, getting out of there with a win, and I thought they put a valiant effort trying to tie the game on Friday. I would have loved to see them, tie it up and get it into overtime on Friday, but
it didn't happen.
Just didn't happen. Like, it just didn't. And that's the, hopefully the guys can realize, like, it's not the end of the world. Just move on and keep going. And you guys played well. You did the things that you need to do. I'm assuming that Gabinet's been preaching to them.
It was one of the better efforts this season.
I'm proud of you for what you did. But it's also I think it was also interesting to see the change in style, because up until Denver's series, UNO would almost always give away the blue line on a rush.
Yeah.
They rarely stood up in the neutral zone to try to, I mean, it's not really a neutral zone trap, but to try to prevent entry.
Right.
Like, it was more of a, like, let's get you in, let's let our forwards get back and try to kind of pin you down and hem you out and then break out. And so I thought, that seemed very successful against Denver, at least. I'm curious to see if we implement the same kind of system.
It'll be interesting to see, yeah.
So I think the next thing we want to talk about was kind of like moving forward, what?
Looking ahead.
Yeah. And not just like 10-year plan thing.
No.
The rest of the season. I think let's start short term.
Okay.
So for the rest of the season, what's missing? What does UNO need?
I think the hard thing right now, and obviously when you're looking in season, it's not like you can, go and pull players off, waivers and bring them in. Yeah. Or in the NFL, you move them up from the I can't talk now. The practice squad or something.
Yeah.
You can't do that. Yeah.
We need to trade for a puck moving defenseman.
This is going to be very interesting. Number one, I believe that Steven Spinner is done with his 6-game suspension. I know we haven't talked a lot about that now, so it'll be interesting to see when he's back. And
hopefully he's healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, when he's back in the lineup, what happens?
Right.
It's hard to know what to do in season. The one thing is, you look at the Mo line, which we talk about a lot on here because they've been the most productive line on the team, and you really wish that they could get 2 lines chugging along and producing goals, because that would make a huge difference. As you talked about in the last podcast,
the biggest thing this team needs, and I think I've said it from the very, very beginning, is secondary scoring.
Right.
I mean, I remember Dean Blase's style at North Dakota was very simple. If we're on offense, we're not having to play defense.
Right.
And what has become the Corsi rating and this like analytical approach to stuff, really stems from puck possession and puck control.
Yeah, controlling the puck.
If you have the puck, they don't.
Right.
The odds of them scoring a goal when you have the puck are incredibly low.
And you know as well as I do, there are coaches in the NHL that is their focus is controlling, puck possession. It's controlling it. Yep.
Yeah. And the naysayers always point to outliers and stuff, but
there have been teams
right.
there have been teams that have dominated puck possession that have not scored very many goals and don't win. Yeah.
So I think that our problem with that is that we're missing that second wave.
We are.
The Mo line seems to do really good at working the puck around.
Right.
Their Corsis are actually, respectable. The rest of the team, not so much.
Morelli and Olofsson have been big for the team this year, and you kind of cringe to think what the team might be like without Morelli and Olofsson, but it would be great if we could get one of the other lines.
And I think that that's also the key is, it stems into the long term, but
right.
Two of those three guys are not here next year.
Right.
So what is the future? Like who are the players that we have now that are going to become the Morelli Olofsson of the Mo line, right?
We don't know at this point. Tristan Keck has had his moments this season, so we hope he'll have a big senior season next year.
The challenge is that he's had a lot of opportunities, but he's kind of failed to finish. He had a breakaway against Denver,
right, and
he couldn't score. And it's those types of things. Like, can he be seen as a Mason Morelli reliable scorer or not? And right. I don't see it yet.
We don't know, and again, part of that's going to depend on what the line combination is and the chemistry of the team next year. And one guy that we talk about a lot, probably too much on the podcast, is our guy Tyler Whioux. And
that's probably my fault.
Yes, it totally is your
my
fault. Yeah, he hasn't kind of had a breakout game yet in his early career with the Mavs, and obviously he was hampered by injury early on in the season.
Got a little bit of a late start, but I think he's still trying to find his way.
I think so too, and it'll be interesting to see if he becomes the player that we think that he can be.
Right, and I've talked to a number of people. Obviously our guest star from a few podcasts ago, Connor and I were talking before one of the game, and he had mentioned how he noticed that Tyler would get into the zone, and he'd do this little button hook thing,
right,
and there's no one,
right,
or he'd make this great move through a defenseman, and then what?
Right,
there's no one there there's no support, there's no help.
There's no one there to pick up the rebound or pick up the.
Part of it is he's a very fluid skater, so you need someone who's not just average. Like, you're gonna need someone above average probably to give him an instant option in the zone.
Right.
And he's not big, so you can't expect that he's gonna grind goals out. I know he's working on it and stuff, but I just don't expect him, and I don't see him as the type of player that's gonna set up camp in front of the net and get these garbage goals. Right?
He's gonna play down low and get the dirty and kind of goals in
he's
there.
Gonna dangle through the guy's legs, break his ankles,
and
exactly. Right over the torn.
Exactly. And they were talking about
guy we expect him to be.
Exactly, and they were talking in the news conference this week about how
I'm really throwing him under the bus. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, they were talking about how Noel Bernier's focus has really been scoring kind of at the net front.
Net
focusing
front scoring,
on that.
Yeah, the collapse scorer. Yeah.
Right.
So I think something I'd like to see them do, and I know if Gabnett listens to this, he's gonna pound his head against the wall or something.
Depending on what happens, it might be worth a shot at that point. Yeah.
I still think you put Conley, Whioux, and Spinner.
Yeah, you've been talking about that.
I want to see the line. I want him to do it.
Conley has played really well.
He has, and he's got good size. I think he's the type of player that could do well as.
Right.
I don't know that he's gonna, he's just gonna set up shop, but I like the way he skates. So I see him as the kind of guy that can kind of go in and out, and cause some traffic and some havoc in there. And when you've got Tyler dangling the puck over there, and then you've got Spinner, who I think Spinner's a better goal scorer than some people give him credit to.
I think he's better than we've seen this season.
I've heard like there are some issues with him, with other players and stuff, and then
We have
some
no
chemistry things.
we have no idea why he was suspended.
We still don't know that.
Speculate, but I think he'll be back for this series, but hopefully. We don't know.
So maybe some production, maybe on a line with someone as creative as Whioux, maybe that breaks him out of the funk and gets him, because he hasn't been performing this year as he did in the past, and I think that he's underperforming. I think last year was kind of more on par with what I would expect to see out of him.
Exactly. So, yeah.
I just like to see him with someone who can get him back up to that level.
I would too. He's a great player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a junior.
Is he? I think he's a senior.
Is he a senior?
I think he's a senior.
It's my one chance. Come on, coach. Give me my shot.
Let me double check on that. I'm pretty sure.
You might be right.
I'm working on it. Yep, he's a senior.
See, so coach, this is my one shot. Just do it for one game. If I'm right, at least give me some credit, I guess. I don't know. I'm not going to ask for payment or anything. What's it going to hurt at this point in time, right? Like,
yeah, give it a shot.
Throw the line together and
give it a
let
shot.
Me see how I do.
And if it doesn't work, we will do a mea culpa here on the podcast, and we'll be like, we're really sorry that we suggested that, coach.
The armchair coaching needs to stop.
Anything that we have to say again. But yeah, I think it just, as we talk about this season and then we look ahead a little, I mean, you and I have heard from a number of people, different people in our case, not to expect the team to, be able to win for another, 3 seasons, 2-3 years.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the source, it seems to vary. I've heard as much as 5.
I know it's.
I mean, a lot of it is just kind of you're guessing at what's going to happen, and
right.
And anything that you deal with beyond 3 years, I mean, you're talking about trying to anticipate what recruiting looks like.
You could, as we talked about, for any team in any sport at any level, could say that they're going to be good 3 years from now, and they very well could be good for you, but that's a long time, and there's so many intangibles, and there's going to be a lot of turnover in personnel on your roster at that point. It's I don't know. I don't know if that's just kind of a lowballing thing that's going around. Like, let's keep the expectations low, so then if we surprise next season, but it's going to be hard next season because we've got minimum 10, 11 guys coming in next season. Could be more. Could be. I was looking at the other day. Could be around 13 guys. It could potentially. You never know.
Don't know what we do if it's less, but it.
Yeah, exactly. Be. I mean,
you could always lose a recruit. So.
Yeah, you never know, and I'm trying to think of the guys that we've. Let me look here. I mean, of the guys that we've had a number of those guys sign. Of the recruits that we've had this fall,
the ones for next year they've signed an actual NL.
Right, and there's some guys who've committed here recently. Matt Miller from the Sioux City Musketeers, who was previously a Michigan State recruit.
Right.
I think back in 2015 he had committed to Michigan State, so he's going to be coming in. It looks like in 2019, so he's another forward that they're bringing in. So it looks like they're.
So I think what you're getting at is not just the season now. Let's look at what we need
down the road,
right?
Yeah.
So I think that the two things I'd say that we need as more of like a long-term thing for this team.
Right.
I think one is diversification.
Right.
We seem to rely, and it may just be, because you're having to rebuild so much, you have so many seniors graduating and you're having to bring in so much talent. The USHL is
right.
The local US kids and stuff that are playing locally, at least, are the easiest fruit to grab, right? They're the low-hanging fruit.
They're the low-hanging fruit.
And while that's easy, I don't know that there's very many kids. You talked about 11 that are coming in. I'm not confident that very many of those 11 are the long-term build a program around kinds of kids.
I don't know that necessarily you're getting a Jake Ginsel type of a player necessarily
right.
in that group.
Right.
So you're absolutely right. It'll be interesting. And the coaching staff, as they recruit, are going to have to get creative. They're going to, as we were talking about before the podcast,
Right.
they're going to have to look at guys in Canada
Yeah.
that might be a little bit
Well,
off the beaten path.
or even look beyond that. Go back to some of your roots
Right.
in some European hockey leagues and see if you can
Yep.
get some
Get
kids
some of
who
those,
want
like,
to come over.
Finnish players, Czech players. Yep.
Yeah. Or even, I know it's hard. Like, I understand the recruiting things, and I've talked to people who do this that have told me that, like, the hardest recruit to get is to try to go into the Swedish and Finnish elite leagues
Sure.
and try to get some of the kids out of there to come to the U.S. because the level of hockey that they're able to play out there is just so much higher. So you're really looking at kids that are not on an NHL board to come out here and say, the appeal is, look, come here, play. In our case, I think one of Omaha's pitches is come to this small town where the fans are committed and you're 8 hours away from 4 NHL clubs. It's an easy place for them to say, wow, this kid's doing good and he's just down the road. Let's go take a look. So I think they've got some sales that they can do there on that. I just know that it's a tough thing to do, but it would be nice to see them expand. We talked about Canada. Canada, I think, is an easy one to get into and try to get some of the kids from there.
Yeah.
And
he's already gotten guys out of those leagues.
Yeah.
And some guys from Alberta where he's, coached the past few years before he came to UNO.
We seem to be fairly heavy on Midwest kids, and I know, again, low-hanging fruit. It's easy to drive up there, but it'd be interesting to see them bring in some Northeast kids.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of New England type players here. Over the years in the CCHA, we got quite a few guys from Michigan, obviously, because we were in a conference with all the Michigan schools. I think that's appealing to the players and the parents, because the parents can more easily come watch the kids when they're on the road. And obviously, in recent years in the WCHA and NCHC, we've gotten guys from the Minnesota high school ranks, which has been important for our team.
There's Minnesota, the Lakes, the lake teams,
but some of the most
League,
intriguing players, like you look at Denver in recent years, they had that Pacific Rim line, which a bunch of guys from out there. So obviously they're getting guys from non-traditional. Tyler Whioux is from North Carolina. Yeah, so they're getting guys from those non-traditional places.
And it's,
Austin Ortega was
yeah. Oh, and Ortega was there. He came in before West Coast hockey was really something to look at, and that's that's an interesting area, because the other thing that I'd say that we need these kids that are fast skaters, good goal scorers, right? Like the Austin Ortega,
right?
A little bit more size would be nice. Something that fits into a system maybe a little bit differently than Austin did, but I think you go out there and you find these kids that play inline and ice and that have grown up out there. Like, it's an interesting kid to bring in, and it's you may not have a whole lot of competition out there. So I think we need to diversify. I think we need to not get into this trap of, like, we always recruit from the same teams or the same areas or something.
Right, because I know coaches always have. There are certain junior teams that they kind of end up doing a pipeline with. Yeah,
because they have a relationship in some
with
way
the coach or with or one of the coaches used to work for them. Yeah, it makes absolute sense. But I think bigger picture, I think the coaches are going to have to get creative with their systems. I think they're going to have to get creative with some of their line combinations, because ultimately this is kind of a make it work moment. You've got to make it work with the guys you have,
right?
Because how in this kind of wretched social media world that we live in, and and obviously it's not the days before social media, or the days 19 years ago this month we started Mavpuck.com. So it's not the years before Mavpuck when you didn't have all the chatter online. It's you've got to find a way to win, and by win I'm not saying win a national championship, but you've got to find a way to win and have respectable results in a season, in the near term, as much as you can. I mean, I think people understand the rebuilding aspect of things.
But I also say that it's not so much the winning too as much as it is being competitive. We got swept in Denver, but it didn't feel bad because we were competitive. We were in those games. We had a chance.
It wasn't like some of those series in October, November where we we got crushed.
We got
It
crushed.
looked like it looked like we weren't going to win another game.
Like, we don't belong in this league.
This series,
no.
it's not a negative thing to
Right.
lose to the number 3 team in the country in their barn at all. And they were very competitive
when you
in
don't
that series.
like let in 7 and
Exactly.
fail to score or something like
Right.
right.
And so that's what
We
they
had
have
a
to be.
chance
They
to beat the
have
number
to
3
be.
team, right?
I mean, they have to be competitive. And having lived through these kind of periods in UNO hockey before, it always turns into kind of a loyalty factor. Fans, you've got to buy into what's going on, and you've got to buy into the stuff. And I get that, but we've also have to see results and see progression. And as we've been talking about, kind of ad nauseum here, the Denver series looked like progression from what we've seen in the first half of the season.
Right. I think the last thing I would say about like future vision kind of thing
Right.
is we need to be the type of team that is a middle conference team at the worst.
Right.
Like, I don't want to see a team that swings from, top 4 to bottom 2.
Right.
And, right now, record-wise, we're bottom 2.
Well, exactly. And you look at like a Colorado College the past several seasons here, and they keep talking about, they've got a lot of young players. Eventually they'll get good. We really haven't seen evidence of that yet. And so, maybe in a couple more seasons, they'll be good and they'll be ready to go. But at the end of the day, you've got to find a way to be competitive. And like you said, I'm not looking for, a 25 win season. I'm just looking to be competitive in that middle of the pack race, because
Right.
you do that, fans will be content as long as you're able to stay competitive in the conference race each year.
Right. And have a chance. And,
Right.
as fans, we'd like to see, a home ice playoff series.
Sure.
So hopefully we can get there.
Exactly. I think that would be good. But it's, when you listen to people, they talk about, how rough it's going to be. And it's tough. It's tough to kind of mentally prepare yourself for that. It's tough to kind of spin that. And it's obviously in a podcast like this, it's tough to know what to say in that regard. And I don't know what'll happen, and you don't know what will happen. And none of us really know what will happen. But I think hopefully we'll see some results in the near term. And I think the second half of the season is an opportunity to see kind of where the program is.
It will be interesting.
It will be very interesting to see.
So wrap up here with what to expect from North Dakota.
North Dakota. This is an interesting one because obviously the North Dakota fans right now, in particular on Twitter, a lot of them aren't happy. They did sweep Colorado College. Those games were close, but that was, both of those games went to overtime, but that was a good sweep for the program.
Right.
After getting swept out at Canisius, I know, or Canisius. I know a lot of people were, a lot of North Dakota fans were disappointed after that series. And I was kind of surprised that they got swept out there by an Atlantic hockey team.
I think it's encouraging to see that both of the CC games at North Dakota, it took overtime.
Right. They were both very competitive games.
And we get them at home.
Right.
So it's not their world. It's not their barn, right?
And this was a series that I think you and I looked at, and we thought, looking at the January slate of games, that was obviously our one home series this month. I think we thought this is a series that they can be competitive in.
Well, and I think that...
I mean, we hope they can be competitive in, but I think we think...
Going into it, I said if they could split at Denver...
Right.
...and sweep North Dakota at home, I mean, that puts us in such a good position.
That put us in a really good... that would have put us in a really good position. Obviously, we didn't get the split. We almost got the split at Denver.
Right.
But I think this North Dakota series is big. I think it's big for the rest of the second half. I think it helps, set the tone in upcoming games.
Right.
Because if the Fighting Hawks come in, the effing Hawks come in and sweep us, it could be rough.
It could be, yeah. But I also look at the other games on slate. I mean, you've got the Rocky Mountain Showdown. You've got Denver split.
Right.
So they'll do one game in Denver and then the one game in Colorado Springs.
Right.
And so if Denver can sweep Colorado College out of both of those things, that would help us. We won't be a basement
Sure.
team, no matter what happens, which is good. Miami has to play Duluth.
Right.
So if Miami doesn't pick up points in Duluth and UNO finds a way to
We have an
sweep
opportunity.
North Dakota,
Yeah.
that's 6 points, and that will
Right.
put us 2 points ahead of Miami. I mean, that's big.
It's
That puts
big.
us
The thing is-
solidly in
The thing is,
the
we
sixth slot.
don't want to let North Dakota in particular get too much of a gap on us right now, because they're sitting at 15 points. We're sitting at 8 points.
Mm-hmm.
Miami's at 12. And you never know what Miami's going to do. They could go into, I mean, they played Western tough this weekend. They could go into
Duluth and surprise them.
Yeah, who knows? I don't think that'll happen, but who knows? And
I
so
mean,
that's
best
the
case
thing.
scenario-
We don't want to have too big of a hole to try to have to
Right.
dig out of, because at some point it becomes kind of an act of futility.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if North Dakota wins both of these games, I don't see a way to dig out because
I
we're
don't
too
either.
far behind.
Right.
But if we can find a way to win both of them, we're a point back in North Dakota with a series to play against them again,
Yep.
because we're going to have to go up to UND. And I mean, then you're looking at like just split and find a way to get a couple more points than them
Right.
here or there or something, where you get to play Colorado College, you get to play Miami, and you can get a sweep, and they have to play Duluth and they get a split or something like that. I mean, you can find a way to maybe leapfrog them a little bit.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
good-
know
it's-
that we get over St. Cloud, Western Michigan, Denver, and Duluth, but I mean, if we could be a solid 5 team,
I
that
think
would be an
if they
impressive
could
part of the
just
season.
stay competitive in that points race,
Mhm.
I think we would see good things happen the rest of the season. That's the big thing, because we've seen teams that have gotten out of the point race and they're just not very competitive, in those games in February and March, because then I think the mindset becomes, oh, well, we'll just, we'll regroup for the conference playoffs and try to, and I think at that
Try to
point,
make a run, yeah.
right, it's awfully tough to kind of, turn that on. So that'll be the interesting thing, Jason. I mean, I think, that the last 3 weekends of the season, we have St. Cloud, Denver, and then we go to North Dakota. So that's going to be a tough stretch of games. So whatever we can do here within the next few series in North Dakota, at Duluth, Western and Miami, and at Miami, we've proven that we can beat Western and Miami.
Right.
So, we've got to do what we can. We're 5-4-1 at home this season. Not a stellar record, but
Nope.
their last 2 series at home, their last series in particular at home. I guess they struggled against Colorado College, but
They did.
yeah,
But Colorado College is playing a much
they're a
different
decent team. Yeah,
type of hockey than North Dakota is.
they are.
I think the key is they take away from Denver that they have talent, they can
Yep.
compete in this league, and hopefully the fans turn out, and it's not a building half full of.
And we need
fans.
great goaltending. This kind of reminds me a little bit of the Frozen Four season. Not that we're anywhere near the Frozen Four, but it reminds me, Ryan Massa, that was his senior season, that was his last campaign, and he played really, really well. And he put this team on his shoulder at certain points during that season. And I think for this team to have success, Evan, not to put too much pressure on him, but I think Evan's going to have to do that, because I think
He needs to make some big saves. The
Yep.
defense needs to make sure that he doesn't have to make too many of those big saves.
it was tough. What he stopped like 70 shots this weekend. Out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not.
That's
it
not-
Can't be.
Yeah.
He needs to be 60.
Right.
55 to 60.
Try to minimize those opportunities in our defensive zone.
Yeah, and get some support. I mean, we need to score goals for him so that
Yeah.
he's not in a situation where one bad bounce means we lose.
It would be
game and
great
it's
if
not
guys like Keck and Jordan could get going, because
Harrison
they've
Buck,
both been solid players for us over the years.
Or like
and-
we talked about earlier, break Spinner out of his slump, and
yeah,
that
put him with
would help
Conley.
a lot, right?
Put him with Conley and Weiss on a line.
And that's
Yeah.
the solution right there. Like
See,
clearly,
Yeah,
I mean, it's obvious. Like
they should have fan choice for a line. Yeah,
well, since
It could
since
be a
we're not doing
fundraiser.
things like skate with the Mavs, we might as well do something new. Like
I don't know what's going on with Skate with the Mavs. That's been
Yeah.
an annual tradition since they moved into their own arena, and I know that that's a nice event that we've taken our nieces and nephews to. It's a great opportunity, and they
they'll
have
probably
it.
like announce it minutes before we release this podcast.
I'm sure that it'll happen tomorrow morning. Yeah, we're really
at the time of this podcast recording, we have not heard a word about them doing the skate.
No, people who have checked, I believe, including your wife, said that it was not on the schedule, so they weren't sure about it at this point in time. But there may be an announcement for the North Dakota series. You just don't.
Never know. So it's always the usual. Well, there's nothing that we know about now, but we'll look into it for you. Yes. And never call you back.
I know.
So
that's right.
We needed to do predictions. All right.
Oh yeah.
So we talked about the North Dakota
yes.
series, but what do you think?
I think I'll be bold this week. I think I'm going to go with UNO sweeping.
Ooh, okay.
UNO's played well at home. I did mention that Colorado College series, but we've had our last 3 series. 2 of those series were sweeps against a good Arizona State team, which did not help us by, losing out at Cornell this week. Yeah. And we swept Alaska Anchorage, which is not a great team, but that was a good post-holiday.
And we worked off some rust, and it obviously helped the club going into Denver. So
I'm going to think the guys played really well this weekend at Denver, and I think that they are going to play well. I think that you look statistically, I think that on paper anyway, North Dakota is a team that we should be able to beat at home. And I think if the guys play like they did at Denver, and I think we get some scoring from the Mo line, and maybe some scoring from the second and third lines, I think we can sweep North Dakota this weekend, which I think would be great. I think it'd put the team back in the hunt. And that's what we need to kind of give them a little bit of momentum going into the second half. Because
something to play for, yeah.
If we go the polar opposite and get swept, it could be rough the next couple months.
I really want to be on your bandwagon.
Right.
I really want to.
I know what you're thinking. I completely understand. Yeah.
I know people give me a hard time because they're like, what do you know? I really want to say that they're going to be able to do it, but I just don't. I don't see it.
So what do you see happening?
I think we win on Friday. I think that we continue the play that we had in Denver.
Okay.
I think they come home. They're, it's that whole, my own bed thing.
Right.
And, North Dakota's pretty good rivalry for us. So I think they'll be up and ready.
Yeah.
For North Dakota. So I think we win on Friday, but we lose on Saturday because I have a feeling that North Dakota is just, there's talent there, and I don't know that they're going to let themselves come into Omaha.
It'll be very
walk out
interesting.
With no points.
They're a team that's kind of had to, sort of take it on the chin recently. They haven't performed this season, and if you look at the second half of last season, as well as people expect from that program. So
I will say that if I'm wrong and we do sweep them in both games, I have a feeling it's a close game and we get a lucky bounce this time rather than like the Denver game where they got a lucky bounce.
I think you could be right.
So I could see something like that happen where, it's late in the third, we're playing a 2-2 game and they make a mental mistake, or it's some weird, you go to pass the puck, something crazy like Whioux finds Spinner on the wing and he goes to pass the puck across and it goes off the defenseman's, foot through the 5-hole and in, right? Like something weird, crazy like that. That's like not how we plan this to go, but the puck's in the net and I don't care.
We'll take a little puck luck. I'll take
you
that.
Never know.
Yeah.
And we haven't had a ton of it, so maybe now is the time for us.
Maybe the hockey gods need to
shine down on us
favorably
a little bit, right?
on us. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll take the split right now.
Okay.
And hope that you're right. Not
smart choice. I'm going with the sweep.
You go with the
sweep.
So
get it done, Mavs.
There we go.
That's right. So if you guys would like to listen to back episodes of this podcast, you can find all of those at mavpuck.com.
13
on
of
our
them.
On our podcast. We've done a really good job this season, by the way.
I think so too.
I think we did more than we thought.
Sir.
Yeah. Let's pat ourselves on the back. I think we did more than we thought we were going to do.
Yeah.
And we'd love to hear from you guys on Twitter and Facebook, and you can find all links to all of our social channels on mavpuck.com, and be sure to ask us questions and interact with us. I know nobody wants to ask us questions, but next season we're going to get that going for sure, so that you and I can just do a Q&A segment and
Yeah, we're gonna need to
address
like
that.
we'll do like a live tweet session or something. We'll just have it. We'll let them know exactly what time we're gonna record something, and
And they can. Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
it'll
Yeah,
just be a whole like
yeah. We're about ready to record live.
yeah.
Tweet your questions now. It's a good idea.
Next year, looking forward to it. You guys keep us going.
We need to. Yeah, exactly. We need to just record during the game. So that's because that's when most of the people are on Twitter. So bring your equipment up to section 216
Haul
and we'll
them
get that
back
done.
up,
Yep.
up all those stairs and borrow the plug-in.
Exactly. Well, hopefully we see a bunch of you out this weekend at Baxter Arena for the series with North Dakota. We need everybody there cheering and getting loud to counteract all of the North Dakota fans that are sure to be in town this
Yep.
weekend.
They travel well.
That's right. So go Mavs.
Go Mavs.